Hello, welcome to Miss Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Miss Peepers. Let's talk about banned books. Throughout October, we are celebrating Banned Books Week, which was at the end of September, by discussing a different banned book in every single video. My goal here is to talk about why books are banned, what kinds of books are banned, and to encourage you, the reader, to decide what books you want to read and not let anyone else decide what books you're allowed to read. Today's book is The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. The Lovely Bones follows a first-person narrator, Susie Salmon, who was raped and murdered when she was 14. Her death happens at the beginning of the book in the first chapter, and she is watching her friends and family from heaven. This book is beautifully written, and it's an examination of grief and loss, and also putting yourself and your life back together after you've lost someone that you love. And it's such an interesting choice to tell the story from the perspective of the person who has died. She's looking down and observing what is happening, and she has a level of omniscience in her narration that you would not have from a different first-person character. So it's really interesting and well done. Now, this book has been challenged and banned on a number of occasions for the mature and graphic content. As I said at the beginning, Susie is raped and murdered in the first chapter, and the perpetrator of this crime is a neighbor whom she refers to as Mr. Harvey. Mr. Harvey is a pedophile, and Susie is not the first girl that he has killed, and unfortunately she is also not the last. We do get a description of Susie's death, and then there are a few others within the novel as well. There was one challenge when this book was taught in a high school English class, saying that the book was pornographic. I disagree entirely. Those scenes are disturbing. They are distressing. Of course they are. They are rape scenes, but they are not pornographic. The author's focus is more on the feeling, the emotional reaction to it, than on each physical act. Pornographic is such an interesting word that gets thrown around a lot whenever sex is described in a book, particularly sexual assault, which I find really interesting. And you'll hear this throughout this month in a number of the books that we talk about, because the purpose of pornography is to excite the reader or viewer, is to elicit sexual arousal. And that is not the purpose of these scenes, and I would argue is not the effect of these scenes either. And so to call these pornographic just makes no sense to me. And when they say mature content, I think they just mean age inappropriate, more appropriate for an older audience, which I understand to a point. I think this book is entirely acceptable for a high school audience. Middle school, which is the age of the narrator, I think is a little bit less clear cut. I think that would depend on the individual child, which is where the parents come into deciding whether their child is old enough to read this book or any other book for that matter. And that to me is not censorship, it's parenting. And while certainly the rape scenes are a content warning to be aware of going into this novel, what stuck with me in this book more than the violence was the emotions, the relationships, the love that Susie feels for her family that's holding her in this part of heaven where she can still see them and can still follow their lives. There is discussion about her letting go when she is ready and them letting go of her. I was actually kind of surprised in my research not to see any religious objections to this novel. Not that I think there should be, but because it is told from the point of view of someone in heaven, and because there is a description of what that heaven looks like, I thought I would come across some of that as well. And maybe those challenges exist and they're just not as common. But truly, Alice Sebold is such a gorgeous writer. And while the beginning of this book follows the investigation of Susie's disappearance and the confirmation that she is dead, seeking out a suspect, and her father becoming obsessed with who killed her, losing himself in his grief, the majority of the book is not about that. It is not a mystery. It is not a thriller. The killer coming to justice is not the point of the book. I highly recommend this one. It is just beautiful. So let me know in the comments, have you read The Lovely Bones or anything else by Alice Sebold? And either way, I will see you in the next one.